Hey, good morning, everybody. Having a little break here from the extreme heat that we've been having here. It's been in the 90s almost every single day. But this morning it's a little overcast and we got a little teeny bit of rain last night. So right now it's not feeling too bad. So I want to take this opportunity of not dying in the heat and show you some blossom end rot and then talk about what you can do about it or what you don't need to do about it. So let's take a look here. I have one. I have a couple in here, but let me show you kind of what it looks like. This little guy here, see that? So when you start seeing blossom end rot, the first thing you want to do is just pick the tomato because it's not going to get any better. And you don't want your plant to keep putting energy into, producing a fruit that you're not going to be able to use anyway. So just pick them off, get rid of those, and let your plant put its energy and nutrients and water into growing the other tomatoes on there that don't have it. So, why does this happen? This has to do with a lack of calcium, or calcium not being transferred into the fruit properly. So it starts to die off because there's not enough calcium in there to help form the fruit. So what I see a lot of times on forums and Facebook gardening groups and that sort of thing, new gardeners, or, just really any gardeners will say, first they might ask what this is, and then they ask what they can do about it. What I see most of the time is people say, you don't have enough calcium in your soil. You need to add Epsom salt, eggshells, crab shells, bone meal. There's numerous other answers that come up on there. So, let's go over that. Okay. First thing, Epsom salt for blossom end rot. Epsom salt does not contain calcium at all. The ingredient of Epsom salt, which says right here on the bag, magnesium, let's see if we can get that up there, magnesium sulfate. Looking on the back, ingredients, magnesium sulfate. There's no calcium in here. So this won't help your blossom end rot. I know it's for years people have always used this. They use a couple tablespoons of it around their plants when they plant their tomatoes, peppers, and a lot of other things. And it is actually a myth, though, that has persisted over the years that this is going to do something about your blossom end rot. Now, tomato plants and peppers and other things do need a small amount of magnesium sulfate. So, putting this on your garden isn't necessarily going to hurt, but it's not going to solve your problem. And actually, if you put too much of this, the magnesium ions and calcium ions compete with each other for uptake into the plant. So if you are just pouring tons of Epsom salt on your plant or around your plant to try to fix the problem, you could, in some cases, you could make the problem worse. So what the magnesium sulfate does is it does add to your foliage. It can make your plant more green and fluffy. But it's not going to do anything for blossom end rot. And really, I would say save your money for the Epsom salt, because in most cases, your soil is already going to have the magnesium sulfate in there that it needs. There's multiple trace elements that plants need, and most of them are going to be in your soil. And if you really aren't sure if you have enough in your soil, you should do a soil test first before you start dumping other things on there. So use this to soak your feet instead of in your garden, right? So, get out of here. Go. Okay. Bone meal. Now, bone meal does some good things for the soil. It's a good source of phosphorus and calcium that can be added into the soil. But just like any other type of amendment that you're making to your soil, too much of this can cause a problem. Before you go dumping a bunch of bone meal in your soil, you want to, again, do a soil test to see if you are really lacking in the nutrients that it provides. Too much phosphorus can mess with the microenvironment that's in the soil. It can mess up the microbes and all sorts of things that can actually make things worse for your plants. Also, in larger, more extreme cases, I don't know if you'd really get this by, using a bag of this in your garden in small amounts, but too much phosphorus in the ground can then leach into water tables and streams and cause other problems. So you would want to use bone meal sparingly and only if your soil is devoid of phosphorus and calcium, right? And I don't have the bags of the other stuff. So other options are like crab shells or egg shells, which they will add some calcium to your soil over time. And they probably are not going to hurt anything by putting it into your soil. They have a very slow release for the calcium as they break down. I know a lot of people will start off planting their tomatoes with an egg in each hole, a fresh egg. And the crab shells will kind of work in a similar fashion. So I don't think that's going to hurt anything, but is it really going to do anything for your blossom end rot? So more than likely, the answer is no. These things are not going to do anything for your blossom end rot. Unless you have a complete lack of calcium in your soil, which is fairly abnormal. I would say that probably 99.9% of your standard gardens, especially in the US, is probably going to contain the calcium that you need in your soil. So, what causes it? Most likely, or I should say in most cases, it's a transfer of calcium, not a lack of calcium. So there's calcium in the soil, but it's not getting through the plant, in through the blossoms to the fruit to help properly form the fruit. Things that can cause that is irregular watering, whether it's like drought-like conditions, or, and I think more often could even be too much water. If your plants are oversaturated, they have a lot of problems with all that water that they're taking up. Things like root rot can happen, so then they can't get the ingredient or get the nutrients at all because the roots are starting to rot, and you'll see other issues besides blossom end rot if that's the case. But lack of water, too much water, and then temperature plays a big factor. Tomatoes prefer it's a fairly wide range of temperature that they are good to grow in, 70, 80, 90 degrees, that all works. But some of the cooler temperatures, especially earlier in the season, like, early spring when you're first putting your plants out, your blossoms are first coming on, a lot of times you get some cool nights. If you saw the video that I posted on pruning your tomatoes, I was out here and it was middle of June and it was in the 50s. And, temperatures in the 50s isn't the best for the plant when it comes to just getting everything done that it needs to do. So that can inhibit the not only calcium transfer, but other nutrients getting through the plant. So if you've got some cold nights during the time that you've got blossoms and fruit first starting to form, you might see some blossom end rot come on. Again, if you start seeing some of this, pick the ones that you see the blossom end rot on and just get rid of them. What happens most of the time, as long as you're keeping up with a regular watering schedule, is that the plant fixes itself and you don't have to do anything. because as the temperatures warm up, everything starts flowing through the plant and it goes away by itself. Now, if you have, a bunch of rows of tomatoes and every single tomato on it has blossom end rot, or most of them do, and it's not going away, then you would want to test your soil and see if there's something else going on where you need to make some amendments to your soil. But in most cases, you don't need to do anything. Save your money. The Epsom salts, the bone meal, the crab shells, you don't need to buy all that stuff. I've done that in the past before I learned all this stuff. I'd be out here buying bags of all kinds of stuff, dumping it in the soil, and I didn't do a soil test because I didn't know any better. And just, put all this stuff on there, and then over the summer, stuff in most cases got better. But that's, I think, where a lot of these myths come from, or where the marketing plays into, getting you to buy these different products to use in your garden. Because early in the season, you get blossom end rot, you see it, you add a bunch of stuff to your soil, and then, it goes away. So that's what works. But what more than likely happened is that the environment changed with the temperatures or the amount of water that the plants are getting, and the plant fixed itself. Adding all this stuff, it doesn't matter how much stuff you put in the soil, the plant can only still take up so much, and it's only going to take up what it needs. So if you're over amending your soil, you might cause other issues, and you spend some money that you didn't have to. So if you got some blossom end rot, it's going to be okay. Your plants will be okay. Pick off those, get them out of there, and let your plants grow willy-nilly and do the things that they're, created to do. So, hope that was helpful. Hope you'll like, and wherever the buttons are at the top of the screen, like and subscribe to our channel. And hope everything is going well in your garden. Let me know if you have any questions. I always try to get back for any questions or comments on the YouTube. So, hope you're having a great day. Namaste.